So on one side, we are looking at UE, Gnode B, and in case of an IAB scenario, we have UEA and UEB, where it is side link communication, or IAB scenario, one UE to another UE, we are creating RLC relationship. So basically one UE is acting like Gnode B, other UE is acting like a UE, such kind of scenario. If we consider on the sending side, if we consider it as UE, on the receiving side, it would become Gnode B. On the sending side, if this is Gnode B, this is going to be UE, the opposite of it. Or on the sending side, we consider UEA, on the receiving side, we consider it as UEB. So this is a transmitting component, this is a receiving component. So we have two components in place. So what does the transmitting component do? It receives the data from these colors you observe. Green color is from PDCP. When the data arrives, for all the packets that are arriving, it will immediately generate the RLC header. It will put the corresponding needed header and store it into the transmission buffer, a buffer where the packets are basically being rested. And then what do? Then the MAC layer is somehow kind of tell you what it wants. Based on what is the MAC layer is requesting, you perform segmentation. And if you're performing segmentation, whatever the previously added header, already you added the header, you modify that header according to whatever you are segmenting, however you are segmenting. If required, you have to like additionally add the headers also at times. And finally, once everything is ready according to what size MAC is requesting, you prepare and you send it out. So when the RLC is operating in mode, the logical channels that it can produce are only these things that are listed. For example, DTCH is the only thing that we are looking at. Remaining things you can ignore because we are not studying those concepts. Side link traffic channel, side link control channel, multicasting control channel, multicasting traffic channels. We are not introducing that because it's not part of your training curriculum. So we are looking at only DTCH. So that means if you cancel the other things out, so uh, the UMRLC entity can only produce DTCH and can receive only DTCH, ignoring the others. For example, if you are using DCCH, if you have wanted to produce DCCH, you cannot use UMRLC entity, not allowed. You have to use something else, the other modes. But this mode is not suitable for DCCH, dedicated control channel, signaling related data. So what happens on the receiving side? The data would be put onto the reception buffer, and we remove the RLC headers that are added. Then if at all the data has been segmented, all those pieces would be reassembled, and the reassembled data would be sent to the higher layers. Higher layer in the sense the PDCP. This is happening on the receiving side. Of course, one very important point. You should not be confused about this arrow that directly sending the traffic from RLC to RLC. So this is one transmitting RLC entity, and this is a receiving RLC entity. You cannot directly transmit anything from RLC to RLC. But this arrow kind of represent that it is producing logical channels. After the logical channels are produced, what happens? The logical channels would be multiplexed into a transport block at the MAC level, and the physical layer, it gets converted into a radio signal and gets transmitted then. So in this arrow, all those lower layers are present. So basically, by ignoring all the lower layers functionality, by assuming that it is granted, it is available, lower layers are in place, we are not worried about it. We are assuming that on the sending side, lower layers, MAC layer and physical layer is working. And on the receiving side, we have the physical layer and MAC layer working opposite direction. And then these guys are like processing and sending, receiving guys are receiving and reverse processing and delivering it to the RLC protocol. So we are ignoring all that part because we already have studied what is MAC doing, what physical layer is doing. So this particular arrow is bypassing all that. So that is why this, when it represented like this, you should not wrongly imagine in your head that somehow RLC can directly send the traffic from UE's RLC to GNodeB's RLC or vice versa. It doesn't work out that way. For example, on the sending side, if we are not performing any segmentation, if MAC not requested for smaller sizes, you did not perform segmentation, you don't need to do the reassembly on the receiving side. You can send them straight forward, remove the header and you send it out to the higher layer. Job done. Now, this is UMRLC unidirectional. What is the meaning of unidirectional? Only one direction, either uplink or downlink traffic going on. But what if the RLC that is operating, working with both uplink traffic as well as downlink traffic at the same time, which we call it as bidirectional communication. It works this way in case of bidirectional scenario. So you have a UMRLC on the transmitting entity, which could be UE, GNodeB, or UEA. On the receiving entity, we have the GNodeB, UE, and UEB. Could be anyone. Now, each UMRLC entity have got two components in place, transmission and reception. For example, if you take, we are going to consider this as the mobile and this is the GNodeB. We are going to consider. If it is a UE, so UE's uplink traffic is going to be transmitted. UE is uplink traffic. UE from UE side. So that goes down. And it would be received at the GNodeB side reception entity. Processed, sent to higher layer, PDCP. So here we have PDCP. Here also sending entity, we have PDCP. Okay, now, if you are getting it from higher layer, it is in the downlink scenario, it starts from GNodeB side. So GNodeB's PDCP gives the data and that would be processed. Same mechanism is replicated here. So it is doing the generating the RLC header and storing it and segmenting, reassembling, sending it to the UE. UE is keeping it in the reception buffer, removing the RLC headers, if required, performing the reassembly, send it to the PDCP protocol. But the point is that this uplink traffic or this downlink traffic, the entities that are existing that are working for one RLC, working for maybe one application, because one application can have uplink traffic, downlink traffic. Now, the uplink traffic components and downlink traffic components are not interacting with each other. They are kind of working independently. They're not talking to each other. They don't need to speak to each other. But for one application traffic purpose, you can create one UMRLC which is having both aspects, transmitting aspect as well as receiving aspect. Uplink becomes transmitting, downlink becomes receiving. Or in case of GNodeB, downlink becomes transmitting and uplink becomes reception. The opposite. Okay, so now how this operation takes place? What kind of headers would be added? How it would be segmented? What logic would happen on the sending side, receiving side, etc. We need to see that. So, but for that, first we have to study the header itself. So there are five different types of headers that are possible here. Observe the colors there. Blue color is representing RLC. Green color is representing here PDCP, the data that is coming from the higher layer. So we have blue and green. Let's first look at blue. Blue is the header that we have to study. Green color, the data that is coming from the higher layer is your SDU, service data unit. By packing that only, you're preparing a RLC PDU. After the header is added, we call it as PDU, RLC PDU. So what headers we have in the RLC PDU? If a UMD PDU containing the entire RLC SDU as one single package without being it segmented, the header is containing SI and RRRR, all reserved bits. They are all reserved for future. There is no use with them. They're all filled with zeros, these reserved bits. But what is this SI? In case when we are packing a complete SDU, complete RLC SDU, nothing but PDCP PDU into one packet, that time the SI value would be set to 00, which represents that the data portion, the data field contains all the bytes of the RLC SDU, nothing but it is a entire PDCP PDU, it was never segmented. That is what is indicated by the SI value being 00. So first bit is 0, second bit is 0. In that case, these 6 bits don't have any meaning. They are all reserved with filled with zeros. Whenever the first 2 bits are 0, the next 6 bits are also zeros. So the sender knows that, receiver knows that. This logic, receiving software know it. So when the first 2 bits are 0 in UMD mode, this is the case. But if the SI values are anything other than 00, the other possibilities we have is 01, 10, or 11. In that cases, we consider them as the data part is segmented. We consider it as segmented, the data portion. That means the higher layer SDU has been segmented. When the value is anything other than 00. But what is the meaning of these 01, 10, and 11? 01 means the data field contains the first segment of the SDU whenever it is set to 01. First segment of the SDU. SDU might have been divided into any number of pieces, we don't know. But it is carrying the first piece, first segment. That time it would have the value 01. If it is 10, it is the last segment of the SDU. If it is 11, these are the middle ones. Neither the first one nor the last one. That means these are the middle ones. So if SDU is divided into 4 pieces, the first one will have a value 01, last one would have a value 10, the middle 2 things will have a value 11. That's kind of give a hint to the receiving entity that which one is first, which one is last, which are the middle ones. That will be useful for the receiving entity to perform the reassembly operation. All right. So now what next? Other than this, values, this 1 and things like that. Now, when the SI value is not 00, when it is any other 3 combinations, then these 6 bits won't be reserved anymore. It will be considered as a sequence number. So that means whenever we are taking the higher layer data and segmenting it, we are kind of adding a sequence number for that thing. All the segments of that SDU will contain the same sequence number. For example, if you take PDCP PDU, divide into 4 pieces, for all the 4 pieces, the same sequence number would be used. so that the receiving entity understands that, hey, all these pieces which are containing the same sequence number, I kind of need to put them together, make them work to do the reassembly operation. So that is that. But now, for the when the SI value is 01, when it is containing the first segment, it will only contain SI sequence number and the higher layer data part, small part, whatever it is going to be present there. But when the value is either 10 or 11, whether it is the last piece or the middle pieces, you have a additional element present called as SO. When the SI value is especially either 11 or 10, you have this SO present. SO stands for segmentation offset. That kind of tells you in the entire segment, this particular data piece sits where, or what is its exact position, what is its exact location, so that it can be used, that information can be used on the receiving entity to reassemble this SO offset. What is this word offset represent? Anything that typically starts from one particular identified location, we call it as an offset. In this case, it should start from 0. For example, in the first piece, we have already sent, let us suppose, 150 bytes, numbering from 0 to 149 byte numbers. Then, if you are sending a second packet, second piece of the SDU, for example, from 150 to 250, then SO offset value would be equal to 150. The SO value would be equal to 150, representing that this data portion is containing 150 onwards. That is what it literally means. But for the first one, you don't need to have it when the value is set to 00, because we know that it is the starting one. The data goes into the starting position. For the next ones, you need to have it, this SO value. For all the elements which are having this, for all the elements which are having this value 10 or 11, you need to have the SO value present. But now the sequence number that you are using can either be 6 bits or it could be 12 bits. It is dependent on the RRC's configuration. At the time of bringing up the RLC, RRC clearly explains it to the RLC. Hey, for the operation you are performing, uh, what is the size that you are using? What is the sequence number size that you are using? It kind of conveys that. Is it going to be 6 bits or 12 bits? But when the sequence number is 12 bits, there are going to be 2 reserved bits added in order to make it the total header size equal to byte aligned. Header must be byte aligned. Byte aligned means either 8 bits or 16 bits or 24 bits, always in multiples of 8. That is what we call as byte aligned header. RNC header must be byte aligned in order to make it. So they have added 2 reserved bits, which would be filled with zeros. There is no use with them. Even these reserved bits also just be zeros. Wherever there are reserved bits in any protocol, they would be set to zeros. Okay, so we see some examples. After that, we come back here and take a relook at them so that we'll understand them cleanly. So we're taking an RLC buffer. We're assuming that the data is coming from the higher layer. And these are the higher layer PDU sizes, PDCP PDU or RLC SDU. You please observe the color. It's in green color, which represents it is the PDCP PDUs or RLC SDUs. Blue is RLC here in our color coding. What is the first task the UMD PDU would do for these packets that have arrived? It won't. It won't immediately go to tell this to MAC layer. Hey, I need resources or whatever. That kind of keep happening in the background. But first, what is the first thing that RLC is supposed to do? For all these things, by assuming that MAC layer would be taking them as it is without segmenting, RLC kind of adds the headers and keep them in the buffer. It adds the headers. all should go first in, first out, FIFO order. Whichever arrives first, they should need to go to the downlink layer, your below protocol layer first, which is nothing but your MAC layer. But what's happening? All these things are getting converted into RNC PDUs without segmentation. You observe the SI values are all set to zeros, and because they are not getting segmented, segmentation offset field is not needed, and that too sequence number is also not required when they are not going through the segmentation process. So the sequence number field is not present, and they're all considered as reserved bits. How do you know whether they are reserved or sequence number? Here it is physically represented on the basis of the column separator there. So if there is white color column separator between those bits, you consider them as they are reserved bits. So 00 is your SI information, 2 bits. There is no column separator in the middle, representing that is one field containing the size of 2 bits. But remaining all of them are 6 bits separated. Those are reserved bits. For none of them, sequence number is added. For UMD mode, sequence number is not there. UMD mode doesn't care about order of the traffic. It never cares. It tells it, the higher layers know that UM mode works in this particular way, which doesn't care about the higher layer orders, data order. Only if you prefer that, you have to choose UM mode. Otherwise, you won't choose this UM mode. You would be going for some other options. But now, RLC might have already reported this to the MAC layer, reported these PDU sizes to the MAC layer. Amount of data waiting in my buffer. Not only this RLC, even the other RLCs as well. Now MAC is kind of making decisions, like from which RLC, how much data do that. Now, first thing it does the scheduling, allocate the resources, and then give a hint to this RLC. Hey, I know that you have large amount of data, but sorry, man, I can't pull everything out and send it all at once. Can you please send me? Guys, any one of you are facing any audio issues? One of you complained about audio?
Yes, sir, your voice is now audible. Earlier it was not.
How much time you lost it?
10 to 20 seconds before.
20 seconds. Okay. Is this clear now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sorry for that. So MAC layer has asked in one TTI, it has asked that, hey, can you send me 1001 bytes of data? I can't take everything all at once. Send me 1001 bytes. RLC protocol layer is really happy that MAC asked for this particular size, 1001 bytes. And there is indeed one PDU that is available, which is exactly of that size. And that is also first in the order, the 1001 bytes. Immediately, what does the RLC do is dispatch this. Hey, it's the time for you to go. MAC has asked for 1001 bytes, go. It says it gives it to the lower layer. It, and you don't need to add sequence number for it. Simply 00 represents it is not getting segmented. Whatever data we got from higher layer is being sent as it is. That is what RLC is noting down. Or indirectly, it is giving a hint to receiving RLC entity that, hey, once you receive this, what you have to simply do is remove this header and send this 1000 bytes to PDCP layer immediately. Okay. Now, what is going to be the next step here? after this particular operation. Now this is gone. We have to consider disappeared. Now only left out is this much. And you keep demanding the service from the lower layer for sure. In the next transmission time interval, MAC again gives an opportunity to send some more. But in this case, in TTI2, next transmission opportunity, MAC is asking this particular RLC that I don't care how much data is waiting in your buffer, but can you please send me 101 bytes for my sake? But when RLC looks at the data, the PDU size is 501 bytes. It is not 101 bytes as per the MAC request. So what RLC is going to do? Now it knows that it need to split this. Definitely, there is no other choice. We have to split it. So it kind of splits it into two units. First, it is adding 01, indicating to the receiving RLC entity that, hey, this is getting segmented, man. And all these bits are still set to 0, which represents a sequence number now. It is no more a reserved bits. The moment the value of the SI value is not 00, these won't be reserved bits. These are containing sequence number. Now the sequence number is 0. Sequence number starts from 0 and it will go upwards. It will keep getting incremented. So you have packed 100 bytes because you requested for 101 bytes from the MAC, 100 bytes of the SDU segment ranging from 0 to 99 when we start from 0th byte to 99th byte, 100 bytes totally we are packing. Now still something is left out. For that, RLC already added the header and kept it there in the buffer. So value is 10. So this 01 represents, this 0 represents, definitely the SDU is starting here. This 1 represents, the SDU is not ending here. It is not ending, it is continuing into the next one because it is not finished. It needs to be reassembled. But this 1 represents, indeed it is continuing from the previous one. That is what this 1 represents. This 0 says the last byte is present inside this segment. So it is finished. That is what the 0 conveys. So that is the literal meaning of 0 and 10. 0 represents, first bit 0 represents the starting of the SDU. Second 0 represent the ending of the SDU. If value is set to 0, it is representing starting. But when the value is set to 1, it is representing that it is not ending. It is continuing into the next one because we have segmented it. We have segmented the data. And when we have segmented indeed, for the first piece, we don't need to note down the segmentation offset because it's anyway first piece we are indicating here. But for the next pieces, we need to have this segmentation offset, this SO value. The SO value would indicate 100 because the data is starting from 100 onwards in the count because 0 to 99 already is getting dispatched in this packet. So from in this, the data is present from 100 onwards. So this SO offset value would be equal to 100. It indicates 100. How do I know that it is 100? 64 plus 32, 96 plus 4, 100. SO offset value length is 16 bits. So those 16 bits represent 100. Okay. Now, important point is there is no guarantee that this segmented piece, 400 bytes of second piece that is segmented, which is generated out of the original 500 bytes piece, would be sent as it is the next time. And there is no guarantee that MAC exactly requests for 403 bytes to be able to carry this. Maybe, may not be. It depends on the MAC situation. What MAC is going to request, MAC is going to request. For the time being, RLC has done the splitting and it is hoping that whatever that is still present in the buffer would be taken as it is, at least the next time by the MAC layer. And whatever it has prepared right now, it is sending it out, the piece. So now this would get dispatched. In the next TTI, MAC is requesting for 203 bytes. Again, we are unlucky. 203 bytes, 203. But the PDU size that is waiting in buffer is 403 bytes, including the RLC header plus the SDU segment that is taken from the higher layer, which is 400 bytes. So now RLC gets disappointed. It knows that now we need to further segment it. It would perform the segmentation. So how it performs the segmentation? Says, hey, 203 I'm sending. So the value is 1, which represents this the middle piece now. Now there are totally 3 pieces. First piece is already sent. Now this is the second piece that is going in with the sequence number being 0 and this segmentation offset value representing 100. This SO offset representing 100. That means data portion starting from 100 onwards. And the total size we are sending is only 200 bytes. Uh, Total size we are sending is 203 bytes, 200 bytes of SDU segment and 3 bytes of header. 203 prepared for whatever MAC is requesting. Another 200 bytes is still left out along with its own header representing 10, and the segmentation offset is pointing to a value 300 because already 300 bytes have been sent out. 0 to 299 is sent out. 0 to 99 sent in the first one, and 100 to 299 is sent in the second one, in this one. So this SO offset value would represent 300. 256 plus 32 plus 8 plus 4 is equal to 300. But this 10 represents, this last bit is set to 0 represents the segment finished here. It is not continuing any further. This is the last one. At least for time being, it is the last one. It may be last one, it may not be last one. That depends on, again, what size MAC is requesting the next time. But the sequence number in all of these things are the same, 0, 0, and the previous sequence number is also 0, the first one that is sent out. These packets are not yet still touched. They are still waiting. Because first in, first out, we are performing the activity of this packet first. Are you guys understanding this?
Yes.
Okay, what next? In the next TTI, MAC has requested for 500 bytes. Because it is dynamic scheduling, dynamic resource scheduling, MAC can request for any size. 500. Now the PDU that is waiting is 203 bytes. So now RLC knows that, hey, I can send this as it is without having to do any modification with the header. The same thing I can take it out. 203 bytes gone. Out of a space, out of a size that is requested by MAC, out of 500, 203 is done. How much more left out? 297 bytes. So now 297 means this 251 bytes also can be sent as it is. It should not require to be segmented. Same mechanism for this packet also? No. How much data is pending how much is the size of this PDU? 701 bytes. These two things have consumed how much? 203 plus 251. So you have 454 bytes is already consumed. Only some space left out of 500. That much only we can pull from here, from this particular SDU. So now we don't have a choice but to segment this. So RLC does the segmentation. So it is now dividing 0, 1, indicating that this is the first piece of the segment. We are only sending 45 bytes with 1 byte of header, 46. Total size of all of these things together is 500 bytes, the requested size of MAC layer. But the sequence number is now incremented to 1 because previously we already used the sequence number 0 for one packet that got divided. For now, for this packet that is freshly getting divided, we need to use a different sequence number. So the sequence number got upgraded to 1. So all the segments that belongs to one SDU will get the same sequence number. But the PDUs which are containing a full SDU don't have any sequence number. The values will be considered as reserved bits. Whenever the your SI values, says, segmentation information values are 0, 0, conveying that it is not divided. The data can be sent to the higher layer as it is. Sorry. So that's the meaning of it. Okay, now, how it is performing the segmentation? What way it is performing segmentation? It is taken 0 to 44 bytes in the first segment, remaining 655 bytes out of 700 bytes. It has put it here, 45 to 699. So the segmentation offset value that is present here, the segmentation offset value is 45. So 32 plus 8 plus 4 plus 1 is 45, indicating the data is present from 45. Okay, now it is dispatched. Now all these three pieces together is of a size of 500 bytes, it would be dispatched to the MAC layer. Gone. Now only this much left out. Now in the next TTI, MAC is requesting for a size of 2910 bytes, which is pretty huge. So obviously, I think almost all of them will fit in for that particular size. You don't have to segment any one of them. Of course, this one is already a segmented piece. The SDU segment it is carrying the data from 45 to 699 indicated by the SSO value. And this 10 represents, this 0 represents the SDU is finishing here. It is not continuing into the next one. Next one is the fresh one, which is carrying 850 bytes of full-fledged SDU, 1400 bytes of full-fledged SDU that has arrived from the higher layer. So in 5 transmission time intervals or 5 transmission opportunities, we have kind of sent out uh, all that traffic that is waiting in our RLC buffer. Of course, with the help of MAC layer, RLC won't be doing it independently. It is going to do that with the help of the lower layer. So now let us go back um, to this RLC operation. Now things would be much more clear. So data arrived from higher layer. You first generating RLC headers at the starting. What are we doing? Immediately you are adding a header and keeping it. By just assuming that, MAC layer won't ask you to divide. You add normal header, all zeros header you add and keep it there. But once the lower layer has asked you to segment, you have to modify the RLC header. Not only modify, But modification means you instead of 00, it will become 01, and the next bits will become sequence number. But for the one that is existing, you have to add the SO offset value also. That part is adding additional RLC header, SO offset value for the left out part. Because the additional header field we are adding, only whatever existing header field we are modifying, but we are adding an additional header field, SO offset. Now, what happens on the receiving side, receiving RLC entity? First, put them in the buffer. And if the once we inspected the header, if it is conveying that it is 00 SO offset, immediately you remove the header part, you send it to the higher layer without having to do reassembly. Reassembly not required. You can send it. But you have received two PDUs, two SDUs, with values being three RLC PDUs with segmentation values set to 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0 are four pieces you have received. Now for all of them sequence number is, for example, 5. So now the receiving entity know that all these 5 pieces by using this ordering and their SO offset value, I have to, if their order is different, I have to rearrange them in the correct order for whatever reason. If their order is changed, put them in the correct order and then perform the reassembly operation. And the reassembled SDU that is constructed by taking the SDU segments from each piece, that SDU you have to send it to the higher layer. And remember, mode adds the sequence number not for ordering purposes. It is only adding the sequence number just to help the receiving entity to perform the reassembly operation. That's all, not for ordering, just to perform reassembly. What happens if sequence number is not there? If two consecutive RLC PDUs have been segmented, now if you will get values 00, 01, and for and 10. For the next things also, you got 0001, 01, 10, and 01, for example, like this, or the opposite, 01 and 10, or 11 and 10. You have received it like this. Now, if these things are merged or mixed, there is no way separate them. You don't know which ones to combine them if they're kind of their order is changed for some reasons. Normally, why the RLC PDUs order would be changed? What could be the reason for that? Why these pieces order would be changed? ARC is the culprit, because ARC would be carrying every time one transport block. Now there is possibility that one transport block can be corrupted and that gets reassembled, that gets retransmitted. Retransmission takes time, but retransmission not only takes the time, but they will change the RLC PDU's order because of the arc level retransmissions that are taking place. So at the time of doing the reassembly, you have to reorder them in the correct order and then perform the reassembly, send the data to the higher layer. So this is UMRLC entity, stands for unacknowledged mode RLC. Why it is called as unacknowledged? We'll get that clarity in the AM mode. AM mode stands for acknowledged mode RLC, which will do little bit more than UMRLC does. Now, if you take a look at it, in AMRLC, there are additional components that are listed here on both sending side and as well as on the receiving side. Now, if you observe, for the AMRLC, for the data transmitting entity and receiving entity, there is huge connection, or they are kind of communicating. So there is kind of interacting with each other, the sending entity and receiving entity. They are not working independently, unlike the UM mode. For what purpose they are interacting with each other? And what is that special additional job that AMRLC should do? It not only sends the data, but For the data that you are receiving, you will have to send status reports explaining which RLC PDUs are successfully received, which RLC PDUs are not. You have to explain that. So it's kind of an acknowledgement, just like arc level kind of thing only, but it's an acknowledgement. We are using arc level retransmissions. Why are you doing this? AMRLC also can do retransmissions. If the sending guy, if the receiving guy tells you that, hey, I have sequence number 5 and 6 missed, you can kind of retransmit them. So to send these status reports, etc., you would kind of need to have these additional blocks. What is the purpose of each and every block? I'll tell you. I'll explain you one by one. But the core functionalities of the RLC component are the same. When the data comes from the higher layer, you add the RLC header and store it in the buffer. But if MAC requests for a segmentation, segment and modify the RLC header and add the RLC header if required, additional fields like SO offset, etc., then send it out by using the lower layers help. But one additional job the sending AMRLC would perform is once the headers are added, those pieces, one copy of it gets stored into this retransmission buffer. So what's the idea of having this retransmission buffer in place? You kind of maintain that copy till you get a positive, in, positive acknowledgement from the other side. You kind of make it wait there. Every piece of data you are sending, you maintain one copy there. So the receiving entity receives this data, put it into the buffer, remove the headers and reassemble. After reassembly is successful, it kind of locally share the information to RLC control. Locally, even though the arrow is not there internally shown here, but there is internal communication between this software block and this software block within that RLC software itself. Says that, hey, we have received 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It kind of conveys all these packets with these sequence numbers we have received. This RLC control is responsibility is to generate such kind of a report. Some kind, we call it as a status report. It will generate that status report, add the corresponding RLC headers, and report, send it to this guy. Send it back to the entity who is sending you the data. Now, this routing entity will be able to easily detect the received one is a control packet. It is not the data part. So it won't be routing it towards this direction. Instead, it would be sending it to RLC control because it has inspected and found out that it is control information. It is not the data part. If it is the data part, the routing entity would have sent it in this direction for the reassembly operation. But it is control because whatever incoming is the status PDU. Once this guy receives the status PDU, this RLC control entity, this guy will go and talk to the retransmission buffer. Hey, we have sent the packet so far from 1 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 1 to 6, but we got a report from the other side that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is received. For 6, we did not receive the report yet. So you please keep 6 in the retransmission buffer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can remove from the retransmission buffer. You can cancel because we got a clear-cut notification from the other side that they have been received. They have been received. So you can throw them into dustbin, but keep 6 till we receive again a report for that, for the 6. Once you get a positive report for that 6 also, you drop it. But if it is not a positive report, if it is a negative report that we have received for one sequence number entity, one block of data or one PDU that you have sent, what do? You have to retransfer that once again by adding, if required, new headers. You add it and you send it, and the receiving entity, it will use it for reassembly. So we have to study how this whole operation works out, how these acknowledgements will work, and so on, how the header looks like, and we study with the example, and we'll come back here once again after studying it with the examples. Now, AMD PDU entities can be created with either 12-bit sequence number configuration or 18-bit sequence number configuration configured by RRC. But irrespective of whether it is 12-bit or 18-bit, for every PDU that you generate, you are definitely going to have a sequence number attached, for sure. And the sequence numbers gets incremented for every SDU. That means if a SDU is got divided into 4 pieces, for all the 4 pieces, same sequence number would be present. But if the higher layer SDU, if the higher layer SDU is a bigger size, you may have to segment it. When you segment, you note down with the segmentation offset value. When the higher layer SDU need not be segmented, it would be sent without the segmentation offset. Same rules as UMDPDU. And someone asked a question, is there any limit for RLC buffer or retransmission buffer? Uh, there is no limit, but that's a kind of a good question. The buffer, when it comes to this buffer concept, it depends on the hardware capacity, typically. If you purchase a 2000 rupees mobile phone with 1 GB RAM working on it, you cannot expect to have much buffer on it because RAM size is very low. Its memory also could be very low. The amount of data that if application generated huge amount of traffic, it can't hold all of that in the buffer. But if you are having 80,000 rupees mobile phone with 128 GB RAM and so on, which it definitely can have higher buffer. Normally, when the mobile equipment is coming into connected state, it sends something called as a capability report to the network in the form of one RRC message, which we will study at RRC layer, UE capability information. In that capability information, UE kind of sends all these details. How many RLCs I can create, out of them, how many RLCs can be working in AM mode, and what is the kind of buffer I can hold according to my capacity, etc. So that information provided in the form of UE capability information at RRC level would become part of your scheduling mechanism at eNodeB's MAC layer, because it MAC layer would be deciding how much resources to be allocated to the subscriber based on these capabilities as well. So if you can't process high amount of data, or if you can't hold high amount of data in the buffer, higher scheduling would be avoided. So that becomes part of the scheduling decision algorithm. Yes. Retransmission packet can further be segmented on the basis of MAC request, which we will see with the examples. We will study that part. We'll come to it step by step. Okay. So what's happening here now? So the data PDUs coming from higher layer or SDUs coming from higher layer, if they are not segmented, your header is straightforward, just a sequence number and data, whatever the other fields are, which I'll explain. But in case if it is segmented, for the first one, you don't have the segmentation offset. For the second, third, fourth, fifth, up to the last, we will have the segmentation offset present, which is going to kind of indicate in the place of the original data where you have to place this data position. It kind of gives a hint so that you can reassemble them correctly without missing their order. Same mechanism is applicable for 18-bit sequence number case also. In what scenarios we choose 12-bit sequence number, what scenarios we choose 18-bit sequence number, we will study later. But it kind of RRC configures this. It's either 12-bit or 18-bit. Okay, next case. These first two bits are newly added, D by C and P. D by C stands for data or control because RLC AM mode entity now has got control information to differentiate between whether we are sending the data that belongs to higher layer or we are sending a status report. So to differentiate it, we need to have one bit for the for helping out the routing entity. What am I talking about? I'm talking about this. When the data arrives, the routing entity need to decide in the incoming thing whether the information that is present is the higher layer data or is it only control information or it is only status PDU. You need to kind of detect that and send it to one of the queues, either to RLC control or to the higher layer processing like reassembly operation. So to differentiate it, we require this D by C bit. That's the use of this D by C bit. Now, if the D by C bit is set to 0, it represents we are sending control PDU, RLC to RLC control, which is reporting the status reports. Of course, for UM mode, we don't have control PDU because UM mode never exchanges status reports, but AM mode does. So it has got this control PDU concept. When the DYC field value is set to 1, it is representing data PDU. That means it is carrying higher layer SDU or SDU segment. Next bit is polling bit, P bit. When the P bit is set to 0, the transmitting entity is not requesting status report to be sent by the receiving guy. It is not asking the receiving fellow to send a status report. But if the polling bit is set to 1 anytime, you're kind of asking the receiving entity that, hey, can you please send me the status report for all the packets that I have sent you so far? I've sent you like 20 packets. I wanted to know what happened to all my 20 packets, all my 20 sequence numbers. Have you received all or have you missed anything? Let me know. You're requesting. So the transmitter of the data is requesting the receiver of the data to send a status report. And in such times, the polling bit would be set to 1. Otherwise, it would be set to 0. That means you are not demanding the status report immediately. You can demand it every now and then. Whenever you want to demand it, you set this polling bit to 1. Now, someone asked the question, I link it now here. Somebody asked, what is the size of the retransmission buffer? I told you that it is dependent on the hardware capacity of your device, of your mobile phone. Okay, now link this to this. If the retransmission buffer is fast filling and there is no more retransmission buffer space left out for your RLC based on your hardware capacity, what can mobile do? Mobile can't keep more and more data in the retransmission buffer, waiting for the status PDUs to come from the other side. So what do? You wanted to remove this data that is pending in the retransmission buffer for the fresh packets to be stored in it. So what do? You would request the status reports quite often. So once you get a status report, you will get a report from the other side that at least some packets have been received successfully. You can remove them from the retransmission buffer. It will be getting emptied or it will be becoming free. So you can keep storing fresh additional packets into that retransmission buffer. But there is no particular value associated with it. It depends on what kind of a mobile that you are purchasing. If it is on the downlink, uplink side. If it is downlink, it depends on the GNODB's capacity, GNODB's RLC capacity, and what kind of a hardware that your company is purchasing, operator is purchasing. You can purchase a GNODB which is costing 1 crore rupees. You can purchase a GNODB which is costing 20 lakhs. You can purchase a GNODB which is costing 10 crores. So all of them would not be of the same capacity. So if their total capacity is high, individual retransmission buffer for each subscriber they are dealing in, which are in connected state, that can be high as well. So they're all interlinked. So D by C P are that. So SI is shifted to position number three, position number 2 and 3. D by C bit is 0th position, P bit is first position, SI is shifted to this position in AM mode. But both AM mode, the entity sending one and receiving one knows about this position shifting of SI. In case of UM mode, directly we start with SI bits, your segmentation information bits, conveying whether the SDU is segmented or not segmented. So we see some examples before we go for the status part. A similar example, we are getting some pieces of data from higher layer. 1000 bytes, 500 bytes, 250, 700, 1400. So what is the first activity AMPD would do? Similar to UMPD, UMD mechanism. So it will construct first the PDUs with standard headers. Just observe the standard headers. First, D by C field is all set to 1, first bit, which indicates that all of them are data PDUs carrying the SDUs, higher layer SDUs. So this is the charting buffer situation. Once the data arrives, you added the header and stored there. Because Mac might ask the same size as it is. Okay. Polling bit, you did not set the polling bit to 1 for 4 packets. Last packet, you are requesting for the polling status report after sending all of them. And the last one you are asking, that means you want some kind of a cumulative status report, not a status report individually for each one, cumulative one. Okay, now at this stage, because Mac did not come to you to asking for segmentation, we did not segment anything. So SI values are all set to zeros for all packets. Because we have packed the full SDUs everywhere. Whatever that come from the higher layer, as it is, we have packed. But sequence numbers are incrementing. This represents 0. This sequence number value is 1. This sequence number is 2. This sequence number is 3. This sequence number is 4. 1 0 0 is 4. 1 1 is 3. 1 0 is 2. 0 1 is 1. 0 0, all zeros is 0. So it is mandatory for having sequence number in AM mode, irrespective of whether we are segmenting it or not, segmenting the higher layer data or not. That doesn't matter. We definitely need to have. Yes. If the last SDU is, you should not call it as SDU. That is wrong question. Last PDU. We have to talk from RLC point of view. Yes, last PDU containing the a polling bit set to 1, which represents that the receiver have to talk about all of these PDUs that have received so far. What happened to each one of them? It has to explain. The receiver have to explain. Okay. So now, as usual, we consider the Mac situation. Mac has requested for 1002 bytes, and we're dispatching the entire transport block, entire RLC PDU containing 1000 bytes of SDU with 2 bytes of RLC header with the sequence number 0th packet. We don't require to segment it because it is 1002, Mac asked 1002. Okay, then Mac asked in the next TTI 102 bytes. We have 502 that is pending, but you've been requested for 102 by the Mac. What you have to do? Definitely segmentation for the sequence number first PDU packet. Normally, sequence number would be applicable for the SDU. For every SDU, we have one sequence number. Now, once you segment it, for both the segments, the sequence number would be the same, which is 1. This is representing data. We are not requesting for the status. Value is 0 1. 0 1 indicates this is getting segmented. It is starting here but not ending here. This 1 represents that it is not ending here. Sequence number is 1. For the first thing, we don't require SO offset value because whenever it is 0, 1, first thing, we know that it is starting from 0th position. We don't need to indicate that. But for the second one, we have 400 bytes of SDU segment, the left out one. SI value is 10, sequence number is still 1, year to year is the sequence number. Now this part is the SO offset. This SO offset from here to here is communicating a value 100. Because 0 to 99 is already dispatched, we have left out from 100 onward, 64 plus 32, 96 plus 4, 100. It's representing. So that means I have the SDU segment starting from 100 onwards. That is what you're indicating. It's the same case as the previous scenario, UM mode, no change. Except here we have a sequence number which is either 12 bits or 18 bits. The example we are studying is 12 bits. Even the sequence number can be 18 bits also. I did not put those examples, doesn't matter. Only size difference, that's it. Concepts are the same. Now this would be dispatched immediately. Gone. Next, what MAC is requesting? 104 bytes. How much data is waiting here? 404 bytes is waiting. Can we send all the 404 bytes if you get a 104 byte request? Obviously, you cannot. You cannot do that. So what do you have to do? You have to further segment this. Already existing SDU segment, you further have to segment it one more time. So RNC prepared the segment containing just 100 bytes with 4 bytes of header for the PDU. So SI value is updated to 1, saying that it is continuing from the previous one. It is continuing into the next one. This is the next one. That is what this SI value would indicate. Sequence number is still 1 from here to here. The SO offset value is still containing 100. And you are packaging the data from 100 to 199, 100 bytes. Now, obviously, the SO offset value here is updated to 200. So as you can see here, 128 plus 64 is 182 plus 8, 200. So this SO offset is representing 200 from here to here. And this 10 represents, this is definitely the last one, this 0 represent. But this 1 represents it continuing from the previous one, the internal linking. But the sequence number is still 1, no change. It is still a data PDU and with uh, no status report being requested. Next, 556 bytes. Next, MAC requested. This is 304. This is some 252. 304 plus 252 is perfectly fitting into 556. So you can dispatch both of them as it is without having to segment any one of the two further. This is already anyway segment, but this one is full SDU. The sequence number 2 packet is full SDU. You don't need to segment it. Both of them dispatched at once when MAC requested for such a size. Then MAC requested 2104 bytes. Again, you can represent, you can send both of them together out. 702 plus 1402 is 2104. So we have dispatched. We have sent up to packet number 100, sequence number. Sequence number 100 is 4. That means totally we are sending 5 SDUs. Each SDU, when it is packed into PDU, one sequence number provided for that. So the sequence numbers we have sent so far are from 0 to 4. We have sent. Totally 5 PDUs we have sent. For these 5 PDUs, by setting this polling bit to 1, P bit to 1, we are requesting for the status report. You're asking us receiving guy that, hey, what happened to my data that I have transmitted? Can you please tell me? I wanted to know. I would like to know what's going on. Report me, please. Now, how the status report would be sent? So this is how the status report is going to be sent, as you can look over here. So we have an acknowledgement sequence number. Device bit would be set to 0. Whenever the device bit is set to 0, it represents control. Next 3 bits are called as control packet type. They wanted to design different control packets for the future. So they have identified this control packet type. The value, whenever it is set to 000, 3 zeros, then that time it represents the status PDU. Remaining values 001 all the way up to 111, they are reserved for the future. They don't have any meaning. It will be discarded on the receiving side. If any packet is received with the next 3 bits containing any other value other than 000. That means for a status PDU, first 4 bits will be set to zeros always. Device bit is set to 0 and control packet type is set to 000. Followed by an acknowledgement sequence number that you have. I'm showing the wrong one. This is for the 12-bit sequence number operation. Followed by acknowledgement sequence number, which is 12 bits. This is 4 bits, this is 8 bits. What does this acknowledgement sequence number represent? It tells the receiver have to tell what is the next sequence number that is not received or the one that you are expecting next. For example, if you have received up to 100, you will send a value 101, which represents that, hey, I have received up to 100, the next one I am expecting is 101. That is the meaning of it. Acknowledgement sequence number always will be +1. One more than what you already have received. And the biggest number that you have received so far. One more than that. Then followed by, there is a even bit, which kind of tells you whether there is going to be negative sequence number followed or not followed. When the even bit is set to 0, there are no negative sequence numbers. That means you're kind of sending a report to the transmitter of the data that, hey, I did not miss anything, man. Everything up to this number is successfully received. So when the even is set to 0, your header will be finished here itself with byte alignment. Just to do the byte alignment, we have used these reserved bits. Reserved bits won't do anything. They'll all be filled with zeros. So your packet size is just kind of only 3 bytes. Your status PDU size, just 3 bytes, nothing more. There won't be any negative sequence numbers present. But when even is set to 1, extension 1 is set to 1, it represents that there is going to be definitely a negative sequence number followed by another even E2, E3 are going to be present after that. So there is a negative sequence number, even E2, E3 are there. What is E2, E3? I will explain. But there will be another even present. If this even is also set to 1, there is another negative sequence number and another even E2, E3 would be present. So till this even is set to 1, you can keep on having the negative sequence numbers whenever it is set to 1. When you have more and more packets missing, you have to set this even to 1. Now, what is this E2, E3? What is this SO start, SO end, other scenarios? I'll keep adding them one by one. I won't be able to explain all of them at once. So we'll keep coming back. First, we'll look at an example. Okay. So this is the AM transmitting entity according to the previous situation that we have studied so far, which is sent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 PDUs. 7 PDUs containing the sequence number up to 4. because some sequence numbers are kind of repeated, as you can see. So this is sequence number 0, sequence number 1 is kind of divided, sequence number 2, sequence number 3, sequence number 4. 2, 3, 4 is not divided, 0 is not divided, but 1 is divided in segmented into 3 pieces. During that, MAC has requested for small segments. But the total number of SDUs we have sent are 5, and their respective sequence numbers are up to 4. But all of them have been received successfully on the AM receiving entity without missing anything. How the status report would look like. 0 represents D by C, representing that it is control packet. 000 represents that it is control packet type, which is the status report. 000 means status report. Now, acknowledgement sequence number is pinpointing to 101, which is 5. Because you received up to 4, the receiver is explaining the sender that the next sequence number I'm expecting from your side is 5. Please. That means it's a full positive report. How can I say that it is full positive? This E1 extension bit 1 is set to 0. When it is set to 0, there are no complaints from your side. There are no complaints from the receiving point of view. So receiver is kind of telling the sender that I don't have any complaints, man. Sorry, I have received everything. The next 7 bits are reserved bits filled with zeros, just to do byte alignment. Instead of sending 2 bytes 1 bit, you are sending 3 bytes, because always the headers need to be byte aligned in 5G layer 2. To make them byte aligned, they do this because they prepared all the algorithms to deal with byte aligned traffic, even the physical layer also. That's why if the data is half byte or 4 bits or 3 bits like that, they can't, those algorithms won't work. Okay. So this is a full positive report sent by the receiving entity in the form of an RLC PDU status. It is a status PDU, we call it as. You see the heading, status PDU. Everything received. Okay, but we have to see negative cases also. First negative case, one packet missing. The PDU number that is missing is 10, which is 2. PDU number 2. The entire PDU is missing along with its SDU. It's kind of missing. Why it is missing? Maybe due to lower layer failures. HARP retransmissions also failed. So it's kind of permanently missing, at least up till now. So how the report would look like? The number that you are expecting, the next sequence number you are expecting is 5, because you have received up to 4. So you are saying that I am expecting 5, but this one is saying but, just like how we use but. It is a digital but. There is a missing one. Which one? 10. 10 is what? 2. The entire second packet is missing, containing its data, the full SDU. And this E1 is set to 0 next time. E2, E3 we are ignoring for time being. This is a reserved bit in order to do the byte alignment. Because the next E1 bit is set to 0, so you don't have anything else missing. Only one PDU missing, containing the sequence number 2. So receiver is giving this kind of a report. So the transmitting RLC entity, after receiving this PDU, with the help of the software, it will process this, understands, oh, this bugger received everything up to the 4, it is expecting 5, but one thing missed, which is sequence number 2 packet is missed, has been missed, or has been missing. So I have to retransmit that. So only this one will be present in the retransmission buffer now. All these things will be removed from the retransmission buffer. Now retransmission kind of became empty. Now you can continue with fresh packets. Okay, next. What if 2 PDUs are missing? PDU number 0, PDU number 2, both are missing. Then the report would contain E1 set to 1 two times. Third time it is set to 0. First time the value is set to 0, the negative sequence number value, meaning is 0 is missing. Second time it is set to 2, meaning is 2 is missing. So 0 is missing, also 2 is missing. If E1 is keep on getting set to 1, that many more packets are missing. That is what you kind of would be reporting. But the next expected sequence number is still 5 because you have received up to 4. That, that version you are not changing. But you're still reporting about the missing ones. Next. This SDU segment missing, the middle one. You remember the sequence number 1 SDU, actually it has got segmented into 3 pieces because Mac has asked for it. Out of them, this piece is received successfully. This third one is also received successfully. The middle one is missing. Now, except that everything else is received. So how to report it? So 000, which represents status report. Next expected sequence number is 5 because we have received, definitely 4 is located. So you have to put 5 there. But even is but 0, 1. 1 is missing. But is 1 missing entirely? No. Some pieces or some segments of it is already received. How much of 1 is missing? Only a partial piece of 1 is missing. You should not ask for the 1 to be retransmitted entirely. That is kind of bandwidth wastage again. Only whatever piece that is missing, you have to request for it. It is unnecessary to ask for the entire packet to be retransmitted. So if the receiving entity can convey how much part of 1 is missing clearly with the help of the SO offset calculations, it kind of helps the transmitter to easily send that much. Only that part. Because it anyway storing each and every PDU it is preparing, it is storing it into the buffer. The transmitting RLC is storing in the buffer. So you have those pieces available there. If you get a report that one particular piece is missing from this SO offset to this SO offset value, only that would be retransmitted. The other two things are not required. Okay, how do we do this? So if we take a look at here, this E2 bit is set to 1. Whenever the E2 bit is set to 1, it's claiming that whatever this missing one is, sequence number 1 packet which is missing, it is not missing entirely. So it is kind of claiming that not missing entirely, it is missing partially. Someone asked a question. Retransmit piece of segment or whole segment? You have to retransmit the entire segment because the segment whole thing is missing. You have to retransmit the entire thing. You won't be transmitting the piece. Of course, if Mac requests it, you have to piece it. That example I'll come to. But your target is to send this missing piece. Complaining is also about the missing piece, missing segment, not missing piece, missing segment. So the E2 is set to 1, claiming that hey, this packet number 1 or the SDU with the sequence number 1 is not entirely missing, but partially missing. What part of it is missing? So this SO offset value represent 100. So starting from 100 up to 200. This value represents 200. Or this represents 199, not 200, 199. So you are reporting, hey, I have received from 0 to 100 bytes, 0 to 99, 100 bytes I have received in the first piece. And this has clearly told me that SO offset value, the third one has told me that the SO offset is 200. So already I have received 0 to 99 here, and 200 to 499, which is going to be the last piece also, is received. So that means I can conclude that 100 starting point up to 199, this piece is missing. So you have estimated based on this piece knowledge and this piece knowledge what they are conveying SO offset values. The software has estimated and told that, hey, from 0 to 99 we have received one, 200 to 499 we have received, so definitely missing one would be between 100 to 199. It estimated, so this value is representing 100, this value is representing 199. So you have to put SO start, SO end whenever the E2 is set to 1. It is varied. The size is varied, as you can see, depending on the even E2 bit values. It is changing, right? Every time are you seeing the same size, Amit? The entire status PDU size is varying based on those field sizes. But these field sizes are fixed. So depending on for example, whenever the E2 bit is set to 1, the receiver knows that, the receiver of this PDU knows that definitely SO start is present, SO end is present. SO start is 16 bits, SO end is 16 bits. So 32 bits additional information would be present whenever the E1 is set, sorry, whenever the E2 is set to 1. So the RLC software knows that. But when the E2 bit is set to 0, the receiving RLC software also knows that, uh, you know, whenever E2 is set to 0, it knows that SO start, SO end parts won't be there. Whatever is missing is entirely missing. So this 0th packet is entirely missing, second packet is entirely missing because E2 is set to 0. Based on that, the sizes would be different. The analysis of the data would be different. Software should look for those bits, and based on that bit, it will have to find out what is the next bits present. Whether the next bits are containing SO start, SO end, or whether the next bits are conveying the negative sequence number. You will be able to detect only by processing these bits. So there is huge amount of heavy processing of these bits need to be done to detect what exactly you have received. Because it's all ones and zeros at the end of the day. How do you know whether that ones and zeros are SO start, SO end, or they are carrying the negative sequence numbers? For that, you need to inspect these bits. Each bit will keep kind of telling you what is present next. Clear? But the size is variable. It's not fixed. But these field sizes are fixed. Each field size is fixed. Let us take one more example. In this case, we have taken the middle segment is missing for sequence number 1 packet. What if two segments are missing? The first one and the third one are missing, middle one is received. How the report would look like? Rest of the things are received. So the first one divided into three pieces, middle one received containing 1 1. From that, the receiving entity can estimate that, oh, this is keeping 1 1. The 1 1 means there is one thing before, one thing afterwards. But with this sequence number 1, I don't have anything received anymore before or after. That means definitely before one is missing, after one is missing. So how the report would look like? So E1 is set to 1, this sequence number is set to 5, the next expected is 5 because this is 4, but E1 is set to 1. So negative sequence number containing a value 1. 1 is missing, but is it missing partially? No. So is it missing fully? No, it is missing partially because E2 is set to 1. Which partial part is missing? 0 to 99. This value represents 99. How does the receiver knows that 0 to 99 is missing? Because this 1 1 field carrying 100 onwards. This SO offset value is 100. 64 plus 32 plus 4 is 100. So you know that you have received 100 to 199 because 100 bytes of data is packed in it. 100 to 199 is received. So you are keeping that. SO start value is 0, SO and end value is 99. We are keeping that report. Okay, but in the same packet with the same sequence number one more piece is missing. To report that, we set the E1 bit to 1. So that means after this SO start and SO end, you have one more negative sequence number. That negative sequence number also is 1. That means we are having a report about once another piece. About the sequence number 1 only, another piece we are having a report about. Again, we are reporting about one more time with, with, with E2 bit set to 1. Then what is the meaning of E2 bit set to 1? Again, 1 is not completely missing, partially. We have to report another piece also is missing for the same 1. Which part is missing? This value would represent 200, and this all ones represents like infinity. I don't know, because you did not receive the third packet. You don't know how much data is packed in it. How can receiver tell that exactly it is 300 bytes? You cannot estimate. If you received it, you know that. Because you did not receive it, you don't know. That's why you have to place all ones in that particular position. I don't know what is the size of it, but definitely from 200 onwards, it is missing for the first packet segment. Send me this segment and this segment. This segment is from 0 to 99. This segment is 200 onwards up to I don't know whatever the size, which you only know. All ones represents that. That means you are sending a negative report for the first packet itself in in a split manner. So this party is carrying the negative report from here to here for same sequence number 1, but this is about this segment. This another split from here to here also conveying the information about sequence number 1 only, but talking about this segment. So complaining about two segments of the same SDU did not arrive. Is that clear? Any questions? Have you understood that? Okay, next. So we did not study one more field E3. What does that E3 represent? Right now we have considered E3 bit as 0 all in all the examples so far. We see that E3. So we take this example. 0 is missing. Why E1 is 0? Where E1 is 0? Here the E1 is 0 to represent that there is nothing else missing after this. No more are present. After no more negative sequence numbers are present. When E1 is set to 1, we have a complaint about we have a negative sequence number package present to represent that we have E1 bit set to 1. Because one more negative sequence number package is present, this E1 bit is set to 1. After this, there is nothing, right? So that's why this E1 bit is set to 0. E1 talks about the next one. Next negative sequence number is present or not present. We'll go back to all the way back to the first example. We see this here. E1 is set to 0. You never questioned why E1 is set to 0 here because you understood that point. Here you understood that there are no negative sequence numbers. There is no negative sequence number package. Negative sequence number always comes with a package. Along with another E2, E3 also it will come as a package. But that package is not there. That is what this E1 is telling. If you take the next example, E1 is set to 1, that means one negative sequence number package is present with the negative sequence number plus E1, E2, E3. But this second time E1 is set to 0, which represents that there is no other package. This is the end of it. This is the end of reporting negative sequence because only one thing is missing. You are complaining about that. You're getting it? E1 is set not to set to 0 all times. Only when it is needed. So here Even is set to 1 two times because we have two negative reports. This will be representing the negative report package here. This will represent the negative package here. Because this time E2 is set to 1, there are SO set, SO start, SO end, which is indicating this one is not entirely missing, partially missing. We are talking about which partial part is missing. Same way here as well. Okay. Next, we have to study E3. So we are considering 0th sequence number missing. For segments are, so first is received, but 2 and 3 missing. How this report is sent? About 0, 3 missing. Rest of the things are received successfully. Actually, no segments are missing. Only full SDUs, full PDUs are missing, containing the full SDUs. Okay, now 0, 0, 0, 0. So this is 5. Expecting reporting that up to 4 I have received. Next one expecting is 5, but 0 is missing. Okay, good. After 0, there is one more negative report. Now here, the negative value is containing 1, 0, which is 2. 2 is also missing. But at this point, E3 bit is set to 1. Whenever E3 bit is set to 1, you have a bitmap which is going to have the sizes, sequence numbers reported about, you know, one sequence number. For example, the E3 is set to 1, representing that. Hey, I am going to explain about the continuation as well. So this represents the second one itself. This is representing for the third one. Actually, when you put 1, 0, you kind of sending a value continuously. How many are missing? Starting from 2 onwards, including the second one. Including the second one, 1, 0 represents 2. 2 of them are missing. So that means you are reporting that 2 and 3 are missing continuously. For example, you have sent 100 packets, let us suppose. Starting from 75, you have 4 things missing: 75, 76, 77, 78 missing. The report will look like negative sequence number value will be equal to 75. And in this, the value will be there is 100. 100 represents 4. That means including 75th packet, totally 4 things are missing continuously. 75, 76, 77, 78 are missing. So instead of sending one individual report for one sequence number, you are, if they are continuously multiple entities are missing, you send one big report with with that extra information present. But that extra information will be present when the E3 value is set to 1. Only when you want to report thing about continuous things. When but the next PDUs as well, if you wanted to report. But it will be considered as negative, all negative. 1, 0 here represents 2. That means you are reporting that 2 things are missing starting from sequence number 2, including 2. That means 2 and 3 are missing. That is what you are reporting. Sometimes status report can be requested after sending 100 packets. There are possibilities in such cases. You might be missing from 50 to 58, 8 packets missing. 91 to 93, 3 packets missing. Like that. So to report such kind of things, this would be helpful instead of sending individual sequence number of everything that is missing. That will, the size will be too high. So to reduce the size, they have invented this bit, E3 bit. So continuously, how many are missing starting from that number, starting from that missing number. And we don't need to set E3 to 1 here because after 0, 1 is not missing, 1 is received. So E3 should not be set to 1 here. Now, every time there is a negative sequence number, there is this E1, E2, E3 present. E1 will tell whether the negative sequence number next package, negative sequence number package is present or not. Again, I told you, whenever negative sequence number is there, E1, E2, E3, three things will be there. E2 will tell whether this, whatever the sequence number that you are reporting as missing, is that missing entirely or partially? That is E2 will tell. E3 would tell, starting from the sequence number, are there continuously some packets missing? If they are missing, you set this E3 to 1 and you report how many are missing continuously, starting from that sequence number. You kind of tell that in the form of a length. This 10 conveys the length. 10 means 2. The 2 tells you two things are missing continuously from that number. Now, this part is called as NAC SN range. This is called as range of negative sequence and negative acknowledgement sequence numbers. A range of things that are missing. The maximum value possible for this is 255. Now, if continuously 500 packets are missing, you cannot send that in one shot. First, you put one sequence number, you can put maximum value 255, and then you count the next plus the 255 sequence number, you put it here, and then again you put another range. How many are missing? Because maximum range that is possible is only 1 byte for this negative sequence number, which can have a value 255. If that too continuously 255 things are missing there. Okay. One last example in the status reporting. Um, so we have zero missing in the first packet, last segment is missing. So sequence number point of view, 0 and 1 are missing. 0 and 1 are considered to be continuous. So the report says 0 onwards, there is definitely continuous things missing. So we talk about how many are missing. 10 means 2 are missing. That means it is indirectly indicating 0 missing, 1 missing. This E3 set 1 reports that. But is the 1 fully missing? Is the 1? No. So then E2 is set to 1, which is going to have the SO start and SO end. SO start will represent starting from value 200 up to whatever the last part. So this represents 200. This represents whatever the last position infinite value. But whatever the SO start, SO end we put, that is not applicable for the first one. Whenever we are packaging it like this, it must be applicable for the last one in the missing in that particular range of sequence numbers. So that means this SO start and SO end is applicable for the sequence number 1 packet, not for the sequence number 0 packet. That is the rule. If 0 packet also is segmented and that segment is missing, you have to put a separate report. You cannot kind of combine it like this. You have to put a separate report for 0, separate report for 1. You can't put it into this range part. So depending on various situations, you send different status reports. Ultimately, the idea of the status report, intelligently with the help of, without using English, with just using ones and zeros, you convey to the other entity which parts, which segment, which SDUs are, or which PDUs are received, which PDUs carrying the SDU segments are missing, are there any continuous PDUs missing, how many if they are missing, like these kind of knowledge we are conveying with these bits. But the bit receiving entity should do this bit processing to understand what happened to the transmission. Successful failure, what happened? Based on it, it will work out. Okay, now the last concept in this EM mode entity. Data is prepared and sent out. One copy of it is stored into retransmission buffer. The buffer, the data that is stored in the retransmission buffer for the PDU is 800 bytes, assume. So you have prepared a 800 bytes PDU sent out. Assume that 800 bytes is already a segment. The original one was 1600 bytes, it divided into 800, 800. So 800 bytes is sent now, stored. But even when you are sending the segment during retransmission, there is no guarantee. While doing retransmission, MAC layer will ask you to send 800 bytes. It's already segmented one time. First time when you are sending it, MAC requested that I can't send 1600 bytes, I can only send 800, send me 800. You sent 800 by dividing, by segmenting. But this segment is reported from the other side as failed, negative report you received in the form of a status information. Now you know that you have to retransmit. But at the time of retransmitting, MAC has asked, sorry man, now this time I can't even send 800. I can only send 400. So what do you need to do? You have to resegment it once again. So this 800 bytes need to go through the segmentation process one more time during retransmission. So now you have sent 400 plus 400 you have sent approximately. Little header will be there, but just telling you the sizes of the SDU segment size. In these two 400s, this 400 received, no, not along with the headers. I'm talking about without headers. Along with the headers, size will be increased. 800 will never become 400, 400. It'll be a little bit more because header is there, right? I'm talking about SDU size. Now, the 400 is reported as successful. This is still missing. 400 is again missing. But at the time when when you are ready to send that 400 that is missing, again MAC asks that, hey, sorry man, I cannot send 400. I can only send 200 plus header. Send me only that much. Now again, you need to send that 400 again through the hammer, slicing department, segment it once again. How many times you can do it? There is no limitation. It can happen any number of times as the number of retransmissions are going on continuously one after the other. You keep doing this without stopping. So that concept is called as resegmentation during retransmission. Let us consider these are your some PDUs. So these are the three pieces of the SDU segment one, PDU one with containing pieces. These are already segments, 102 bytes, 104 bytes, 304 bytes. From which example I'm taking in? Let us take this one. So this is 102 bytes, this is 104 bytes, this is 304 bytes. Belongs to sequence number one. So these three segments are stored in the retransmission buffer. But during retransmission, MAC maybe all of them might be missing. MAC, you are asked to retransmit all the segments, but at that time, MAC did not even give you the chance to transmit them as it is, the same sizes during retransmission. Maybe while transmitting this 102 bytes, MAC has asked that, hey, send me only 50 to 54 bytes, 52 bytes at the starting. Next time it is giving you to send 54 bytes. Now you can see size increased. You are actually sending 100 bytes only as the SDU, that to segment, but that is 50-50. But for one thing, we are using 2 bytes of header, the other one we have having 4 bytes of header because these don't contain the SO offset. This contains the SO offset. But now SO offset is modified. Look at it. This is not having SO offset. So this is also not having SO offset, 0. Default SO offset. But this SO offset will indicate a value 50 because you are packing 0 to 49 in this. So this is starting from 50 onwards. So SO offset is indicating 50 onwards. And we are packing from 50 to 99, another 50 bytes in this. And this value is 1 1 now. This value is 1 1. Now when the 0 1 is split, it becomes 0 1 plus 1 1. Because this is not starting here, it is continuing from here, neither ending here, it is continuing into the next one. But there is no guarantee that at least the next ones will be carried as it is. Next time when we are about to transmit 104, Mac can again ask for smaller size. We may have to resegment that also, depending on what Mac is requesting. For example, first time Mac requested only 40 bytes, another 68 bytes. Again segmented. So the segmentation offset values that are present here, this segmentation offset value is 100. 64 plus 32 plus 4, 100. But this segmentation offset value is 136 because you already said 100 to 135. So this can be 136. 128 plus 8, 136. Because in this we are packaging 34. So you always, yeah, segmentation offset always talks about what is the data position. If all these PDUs have been rearranged, their order is changed, you must be able to reconstruct the original SDU from all these segments. That is the idea behind SO offset. Now even this 304 also might have been resegmented. MAC requested 154, 154. Now you see, when the more and more segments you do, the header size will becoming bigger. Now, because we are sending two packets, each one need to contain a header. Now the total size is become 308 bytes instead of 304 because both PDUs contains the header. Now the this SO offset is what? This SO offset is 200. This SO offset value is 350 because we are packaging 150 bytes here, 200 to 349. So this is 0. This is 50 segment offset. This is 100. This is 136. And this is 200. This is 250. Just imagine all of them for some reason in the network, their order has been changed due to ARC reordering or because of lower layer issues. Even if their order is changed, with the help of the numbers, we can arrange them in the incremental order, and then you can combine those SDU segments and reassemble them, reconstruct the original PDU of size 500 bytes, and send it to the higher layer, the PDCP layer. That's the duty of RLC. Doesn't matter how many pieces it becomes, how many segments it becomes. You must be able to reconstruct in its entirety. And this never needed to stop here. For example, after at the time of retransmission, this happened. Now you got a report that one of the pieces, for example, this piece is again missing. You got a report. But while retransmitting, MAC may ask again smaller sizes. Now it becomes that. So now these SO offset values is, this is 200 SO offset, this matching with this one. But when it is split into 3, this segment offset is 247 because you packed it from 200 to 246 here. So this is 247. 247 to 275, 20 bytes packed here. And this is representing 276. Now this is 350. Even if once this comes, all these things got rearranged, but still you will be able to put them in the correct order if they are if their order is not in the correct place because of lower layer transmission failures and because of retransmissions. If their order gets changed, you place them always with that SO offset incremental value. The one that is not having SO offset is the with the SI value 01. Remaining all the ones containing SI value, segmentation offset value. In their incremental order, you will place them. And then you take those segments by removing the headers Add all the segments up, those bytes of data, your data is reconstructed, send it to higher layer. Is this clear, everyone? Have you understood what is the meaning of resegmentation during retransmission? Because
Yes.
Mac is always going to do dynamic scheduling of the resources. You don't know how much Mac requests. Whatever Mac requests, it is your duty to send it because RLC is a mutton shop. So it is basically chopping block. Whatever the Mac asks, you have to chop that much, add corresponding header and send it. So that that header will help the receiving entity to reassemble. Doesn't matter how many times it gets resegmented. You can still reassemble with the help of that header. You remember the first class we have studied? Every protocol layer will add the header to help the receiving entity to do something. So RLC is adding all these headers to receive to help the receiving entity to reconstruct the original SDU from all these segments. Any questions here? Okay. The most easiest among all the three, um, when you have to send the status report, I will explain it in tomorrow's class. We are not yet done with RLC. So there is something that is linked to it. I will explain. We have to study some configurations and settings related to it. The segmentation sent on the basis of status report, but how receiver side will recognize them? What do you mean receiver side will recognize them? Those ones and zeros are conveying information, right? Each bit has got a meaning, has got a particular place that but that bit is representing, and what is the value of that meaning? Sorry, what is the meaning of that value? The software knows it. Software know the processing. Okay, I will tell you this. Question linked to it. Are these sending with regular PDUs or send differently? What do you mean by regular PDU or send differently? I did not get that question, but I'll answer your previous question, which are not retransmitted. Sequence number is there, right? Sequence number is there and SO offset value is there. From SO offset value, you know whether it is retransmitted ones or fresh ones. Because sequence number is getting incremented in AM mode for each and everything. So you have sequence number 0 here. So this is 1, 1, 1. So they all belongs to one piece. This is 2, this is 3, this is 4. So from the sequence number analysis, the receiving entity would know. So when MAC layer receives a transport block. It dismantles the transport block, and on the basis of logical channel ID, it decides which data belongs to which RLC, and it starts giving the data to the corresponding RLC. Now MAC sent, like, let us suppose 1 or 2 bytes to the MAC layer. What does MAC layer need to do? From these 1 or 2 bytes, RLC software need to start processing the header. First I need to identify how many bytes of header is present. The moment it sees this bit as 1, first thing the RLC software understands it is, okay, this is definitely data that belongs to higher layer. This 0 tells him that, okay, the sending bugger is not asking me return report, status report, good. The moment the next two bits are read by the software, the RLC software understands that, oh, this is a full PDU, 00 representing whatever the SDU that is present inside it, it is full, it is never segmented. That means I can aramse send it layer as it is without having to do any reassembly. Okay, next. The next 12 bits, it read it as sequence number. It says that, okay, this is sequence number 0. Now, the remaining part is your header is finished here because the moment it is set to 00, the header is only 2 bytes. Only when the when it is anything other than 01 or when it is 11 or 10, you have the SO fields present. Otherwise, the receiving software knows that when the value is 00 or 01, definitely SO start is not there. SO number can't be more than 16 bits because there is some limitation on the amount of data that we can package in RLC. So that is why there is SO offset to value is set to 16 bits. It can be more than 16 bits. So how much sized packets that you can expect from the higher layer is limited. What size you can expect from PDCP? You cannot allow PDCP to send whatever size it wants. No, RLC has got its own size limitations. What size a SDU can be maximum? Those are standardized already. So within that standardized sizes you get it, definitely they won't cross the 16-bit SO numbers size. Got it, Srinivas? I'll show you those sizes tomorrow.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Exactly. Someone pointed about RLC sequence number. Yes, when the sequence number is 12-bit, definitely there is a limitation for it. That is 2 power 12 minus 1. After reaching 2 power 12 minus 1, the value, which is equal to 2047, the value becomes 0 because the sequence numbers are called as circular values. So they increase from 0 to 2047, then they become 0 once again and continue like that 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 to the next to 2047. No, sorry, not 2047. It is 4096, 4095 the value is, if it is 12 bits. 2 power 12 is 4096. 4095 is correct. So after reaching that value, it becomes 0 once again. And repeat. But by the time you already moved to 4095, you must have already completed the things with 0 and at least up to at least half of it, the previous half of the things. So there won't be any kind of conflict created between the previous 0 and this 0. So that logic also we have to study. We'll understand it. That is called as a window, moving window. So you only within the window you will allow these numbers. So what is that window? How that window works? I'll explain in next class for RLC. It won't be pending too much. That is what I told you. If too many things, you can't keep it pending in the retransmission buffer. Then you can't reach to the end of it. As that is what I told you as a receiving window and a transmitting window. There are rules and regulations which we'll not study today. Tomorrow we'll see, Pawan. All right. One last thing that I have to cover up for today is the third mode that is available, which is for TMRLC entity. TMRLC entity on the sending side gets the data and stores it into the transmission buffer, which is incapable of doing any operations like segmentation, etc. Whatever the SDU comes from the higher layer, it keeps that SDU as it is, and it kind of demands the MAC layer that, hey, my SDU size is like 48 bits. If you want to take it, you take it entirely as it is as one piece, because I am not capable of doing segmentation. I don't have the that particular software mechanism implemented in my side. So you take it either entirely all at once, or you skip it for next time. But if you come and ask me that, "Hey, I have 48 bytes, you ask me to send only 32 bits, I won't send it that way. It doesn't work that way because my capabilities are limited. I have only a buffer. That's it. Typically, this mode works for common channels before the dedicated RLC entities are created. Because during common channels, any special configuration working out is not possible. That is why they kind of done this. They kind of did this. For common channels, it works this way. Where Mac layer will have to pull everything all at once. So RLC not only tells how much data is waiting, and also it communicates what is the size of the SDU at the same time when it is indicating. And demanding Mac layer, take everything at once, don't take it. I can keep it waiting for some more time, as long as needed. What happens if the UE is turned off in between? What will happen to the status report and pending segments? Everything will be lost. That will be considered as radio link failure. All of it is gone if it is turned off. It's not turned off. We'll see such situations. What happens? We call it as re-establishment of RLC layer. What happens in those cases? We will study. We'll look into those aspects in coming up sessions. The RLC is not yet finished. So I'll answer all your questions, what you have asked today, in tomorrow's starting part. So on the receiving entity also, TM mode has got nothing to do with anything. Like whatever you receive, you send it to higher layer without worrying about reassembly, nothing, no reception buffer. As soon as you receive it, you send it to the higher layer. So totally three modes. One mode can do the segmentation and reassembly operations, unacknowledged mode, but it is not capable of sending status reports, not status reports, but can do segmentations and reassembly. On the receiving side, you can perform reassembly. AMRLC can do segmentation reassembly plus status reports, and based on the status report retransmission of the missing PDUs that are reported. TM can do nothing, almost a puppet, just a buffer. That too on the transmitting side. It won't even have a buffer on the receiving side also. Just transmitting side buffer. But we have to still study a lot more different parameters, how these things will be configured. How does RLC entity know in which mode it is operating, and what is the time and the sequence number sizes, and how they all come up with that, and how what happens if the same sequence numbers are repeated, how to prevent it, what are these windows, transmitting window, receiving window, etc. So to understand its live operation, we'll study that live operation related aspects in tomorrow's session. So we're going to take